check-in.
Together, we are Jalen and Jacoby. What do?
We get the people what they want.
The Philadelphia 76ers had an opportunity to close out the Heat last night, and once you saw Meek Mill ring the bell at the beginning of the game, you knew that is exactly what was going to happen. There is Meek right there. Jalen Rose, with Embiid back, with Simmons cooking, and with Meek Mill courtside, do you think the Sixers are poised for a deep playoff run?
They are poised for a deep playoff run. Once the brackets came out and the Boston Celtics were dealing with injuries to Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward, I felt that the Philadelphia 76ers had what it took to make it to the finals. Now that I see the Cleveland Cavaliers struggle to get anybody not named LeBron James involved, they looking eye to eye. Now, am I going to be the guy that picks LeBron to lose to Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid? I'm not going to do that. However, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. But the great thing I love about the playoffs is the progress of it. You remember the difference between games 1 and 2 when the Philadelphia 76ers played the Heat. Yep. How dramatically those games were different and the outcomes were as such. So teams change as the playoffs progress, but Philadelphia today, for whatever it's worth, and you don't get crowned, looked like the best team in the conference.
They did. They absolutely did. I think with their young core and their just like fun-loving spirit and Joel Embiid's Twitter feed, they're kind of a likable team. And if you were on the fence about liking this team, Brett Brown, after the game, will change that for you.
Congrats on your first career playoff victory. Playoff series victory, man. That's a big deal.
They were just having so much fun. Before that, Brett Brown had some emotional words for the team. Are you on board with the 76ers and Brett Brown at the helm?
Congratulations to the Sixers and Brett Brown for advancing in the playoffs. I have to point out something in that video that I want everybody to pay attention to. And this is the person that I hate in a scrum. Okay. The person that came in late and pushed him with 2 hands.
Why is that?
Like, that part is unnecessary.
Why's that?
That's a guy that's mad about his minutes. I guarantee you, if we really found out who that was.
Play the video again.
That's somebody that he gets on really often.
Play the video again. So you're telling me someone's taking...
Congrats on your first career playoff victory. Playoff series victory, man. That's a big deal.
We can't tell who that is, but that was somebody who's upset about their minutes. They used a celebration as an opportunity to let Brett Brown know how they feel. Jalen, that's why I love doing the show with you. Those astute observations. So,
hey, man, I'm trying to tell you, think about this. I'm standing there. I'm wearing a suit. We just won a game. You see them pouring water and chocolate milk over me. I'm holding the bell in my hand. I can barely see. And you're an athlete who works out every day for a living. Okay, you're going to just come up and push me with 2 hands?
I totally understand where you're coming from. That sounds like something that both you and I would do.
No question about it. And so, to get back to them, this is a great feat for them, and I'm glad they were able to enjoy it. Usually, the great American philosopher David Jacoby once said people don't celebrate enough. And I see this happen in baseball really often, where people celebrate after regular season games out on the field. So we don't on the diamond. So we don't see this happen a lot in the NBA, and it was refreshing to watch.
I say people don't celebrate a lot, but I also say another thing. You can be mean if you're funny. And Jalen Rose, let's watch this clip and tell me if this is funny enough to be mean.
We home! We home! We home! My God, home! I said we home, no Meek. Meek got fat as shit. He got fat.
He just got out of jail, and Kevin Hart is already making fun of his weight gain. Is that funny enough to be that mean?
I want to say something with all due respect, but it's great for this program, and I got love for Meek, so I can get this joke off. Here's the thing. Okay, you would think that normally when you were locked up, you're not eating good.
Yeah.
But he was a celebrity on the inside. Yeah, owners of the Patriots coming to visit him, and the Sixers, Joel Embiid and Kevin Hart,
Yeah.
all these celebrities coming to visit him. He was eating lobster.
It was like Goodfellas in jail for Meek Mill. Well, the Heat
tweeting and IGing.
The Heat did get sent home, and they were no longer in the playoffs. And the question at the end was, is this the last time that we will see Dwayne Wade in an NBA uniform? Jalen Rose, do you think that this is the last we'll see of the great Dwayne Wade?
I think how the journey happened late in his career helped this answer to be, no, this is not the end. I anticipate he's going to play next year. While he was the iconic player there, through thick and thin, winning rings with people like Shaq and Zoe to people like LeBron James and Chris Bosh. He's earned that level of equity by the team that drafted him to go out on his own terms. And both sides, I'm pretty sure, wanted it to happen that way. But it's professional basketball. So his contractual obligations were coming up.
Yep.
The team had already paid Gordon Hayward. And so they were trying to decide about the future, and they paid one Hassan Whiteside a lot of money. He didn't show up in this series, and that's another series subject for another day. Dwayne Wade would not have been a role player mentally on that team. So it was best for him to go to Chicago, go to Cleveland. A, you see the grass isn't always greener, but also B, it kind of gives the relationship for both sides a chance to heal. So now you could go back to Miami as a reserve, play a role, get in the game when the team needs you. They understand your limitations at this point of your career. And now it works. So I wouldn't be surprised that if he not only came back next year, but he plays 2 more seasons with the Heat.
Ooh, I love that, Jalen Rose. Also last night, the Celtics won a decisive Game 5 against the Bucks, holding the Bucks to just 36% shooting, playing some great defense. Do you think the Celtics can use this momentum to close out the series in Milwaukee in Game 6?
The way the series has gone so far, you're relying on a lot of unproven playoff performers that seem to not be able to perform on the road. So for the Milwaukee Bucks, they look like a different basketball team. In particular, Jabari Parker, Thon Maker, Malcolm Brogdon in the previous game made a big 3 in the right corner. Then all of a sudden you go to Boston, not only are those guys not producing at that level, but Greek Freak wasn't necessarily being confident. He only had 10 shot attempts. And the Celtics role players in reverse were playing well. We saw a Rozier sighting. You get Marcus Smart back in the lineup. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are always productive and play hard. Al Horford gets overlooked in that dynamic. They did get away with a shot clock violation late in the game, but the Boston Celtics took care of business on their home floor.
I mean, that shot clock violation was bad, and I was watching it, and I thought it was so obvious. I was shocked that the refs made it. But at the same time, like, I think that everyone could point to that, especially if you're a Bucks fan. But they didn't score on that possession. It really just cost them about 15 seconds of game time, and they were down 5 anyway. So I don't feel like that was as decisive as some of the media is making it sound. But, Jalen, one quick question for you. Now that the Sixers have advanced, when they are watching this series, what team do you think the Sixers are rooting for to face in the next round?
Oh, they rooting for the worst case scenario, a team that can't really shoot from long range. That's Milwaukee. And yeah, you have to deal with the Greek Freak, but your best players are 6'9" and above in Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. So you hope you can find a way to contend with him. But imagine watching, and this would be an interesting sight to see, 2 of the more talented players in the game, Ben Simmons and Greek Freak, both going at one another, while neither one of them primarily shoot threes. Like, it's an afterthought in their game.
Absolutely.
And that's what's going to be fascinating if those 2 guys got a chance to go against one another. But don't count out the Boston Celtics in advancing. I think that's who the Sixers ultimately end up playing.
As do I. Coming up next, the Spurs' highest priority in the offseason is a meeting, something that we don't have on this program.
Michael Carter-Williams has had a, let's call an up and down NBA career.
Well, he got traded from Philly by mentioning the word win in the locker room one time.
Yeah, they were like the Win Hotel? Like, Win is the bus leave? Like, what do you mean? There's no win around here.
Tonight, ESPN and the Cubs are in Cleveland for the second game of a two-game series. That starts at 7 p.m. And as always, don't forget, every single morning from 7 to 10 a.m.,
Get up now!
both on the East and the West Coast, you can watch Jalen Rose, Michael Greenberg, and Michelle Beadle on the greatest television show in the history of the medium. Jalen Rose, welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. As we all expected, the Warriors closed out the Spurs last night in Oakland. They will now move on to face the Pelicans in the second round. Jalen, what do you see from the second round matchup between the Pels and the Warriors?
I see a long, compelling series, and it's going to start in the backcourt, assuming Steph Curry returns. I think Klay Thompson versus Drew Holiday, Steph versus Rondo, those are intriguing matchups. Mirotic has played well up front, shooting threes and giving them versatility for the Pels. Going against Kevin Durant, who seemed to find this game, in particular in the fourth quarter, to close out the San Antonio Spurs. Draymond Green playing big, getting points, getting boards, playmaking, seeming to be emotionally and psychologically engaged. This seems like to be a player that plays much different in the postseason. And so with Anthony Davis on the other side, who nobody's put up bigger numbers than he has amongst the league leaders in points and rebounds and blocks, has elevated himself into best player in the game conversations. That's going to be a phenomenal series. Can't wait to watch it.
I mean, I don't know about best player in the game conversations for AD, but I do know this. Steve Kerr said that Steph Curry won't be playing anytime soon. I'm saying that's not true. I'm saying that on Saturday, Steph Curry will play restricted minutes in Game 1 against the Pelicans. Do you agree with me? Do you think he'll be on the floor in Game 1?
True.
I think so, too. I think this whole, he won't play anytime soon thing was just all game. We know what's going to happen. We know Steph's going to come back for Game 1.
Once you see him out there pregame on the floor doing drills, he's not preparing to practice.
No.
Or he would be doing it in the practice gym. He's preparing to play, and he's doing it at the game time of the evening to warm and train his body up to be able to perform. So I'm excited to see him return. These playoffs are unfortunate in a lot of ways that so many talented people aren't able to perform due to injuries. Gordon Hayward, Boogie Cousins, Kawhi Leonard come to mind right off top.
Well,
I'm excited to see Steph return.
I want to talk to you about Kawhi Leonard specifically. And whether or not he's injured is a debate, I suppose. However, high on the priority list in the offseason for the Spurs is a meeting between the Spurs and Kawhi Leonard. I have so many questions for you about this. I'm going to ask them all at once. Who calls the meeting? Who attends the meeting? Where is the meeting? What gets said at the meeting? And what do you think will come out of the meeting?
A few things. Number one, the team calls the meeting because he's still under contract. Number two, if I'm him, guess who comes to the meeting with me? My group. No. And not only the group, literally, but, oh, man, anybody that I might have ever introduced myself into about business is going to be there. I have like 75. It's going to be an entourage. It ain't going to be a group. But in all honesty, I have profound respect for the San Antonio Spurs. I hate to see Pop deal with this tragic loss to his wife at this point, or any point for that matter. And so they're going into this offseason with heavy hearts. And as a franchise, when you're dealing with this scenario where Kawhi Leonard hasn't been performing for whatever reasons, only playing in 9 games and getting eliminated in the first round, back-to-back seasons, this is not what the Spurs signed up for.
No.
And so I think the meeting, in a lot of ways, is going to be, are you committed to be here? If so, we want to give you $200+ million to play basketball. If you are unsure, when will you be sure? Because we need to move on with the future. And so it's going to be something that happens soon, and I can't wait to get the details of it.
Well, I look forward to that. And lower on that priority list for the Spurs is the return of Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, legends in Spurs uniforms. Jalen Rose, do you think we've seen the last of those two wearing the black and gray?
Same with Dwayne Wade. The way Wade played in Game 1 and showed how he can still perform off the bench in a limited role. Manu Ginobili's been doing that for a really long time. And how he was able to lift himself in the fourth quarter when the Spurs got their lone win in this series is reason enough for him to come back. So I anticipate he comes back. Now, Tony Parker, if they can move him, he's gone. During the year, they already gave Murray the starting job. So if you're Tony Parker, you have to go somewhere else and reinvent yourself.
Jalen Rose, when we come back, we're going to discuss Condoleezza Rice's thoughts on college basketball.
You got to give the people time. Give the people what they want.
Welcome back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose, Condoleezza Rice, and some of her homies got together and they decided that they were going to fix college basketball. The results were a 60-page report that I'm probably not going to read, but I will read all of the summaries of it, and I will listen to Condoleezza Rice talk about the one-and-done rule.
We must separate the college track from the professional track by ending one and done. We call on the NBA and the NBPA, who exclusively have power here, to once again make 18-year-olds eligible for the NBA draft so that high school players who are drafted may proceed directly to the NBA.
Jalen Rose, she also suggested harsher penalties for coaches that violate rules. The agents have access to players in college, in high school, and some other things as well. We heard you discuss this on Get Up, as we watch Get Up every single day, great program. And you pointed out that she didn't make any mention of money. But what do you think of these other suggestions, like the harsh penalties and the one-and-done rule and the access the agents have?
First and foremost, I'm a huge fan of hers, and I'm glad she's taking the time and energy and her sweat equity to try to influence the issue that relates itself to collegiate basketball and its relationship with the NBA, its players, and the NCAA. Secondly, a lot of the things that I saw that were recommendations seems like they're going to happen, which is positive, that the one-and-done rule will end, that the penalties will be stiffer after recent allegations have come down on multiple programs and shoe companies. It seems like that was inevitable. To put players in position where they can be in contact with agents, that is basically happening anyway, so you might as well allow it to happen, sort of like gambling. And lastly, to allow players that enter the draft, if they don't like where they're selected, to allow them to go to college. That just seems normal. But what seems abnormal to me is the indentured servitude that takes place between the NCAA colleges and its players. They get a chance to play basketball on scholarship, and I don't take that for granted. I enjoyed my college experience. It was one of the best times of my life. However, they are generating money for the university and for the coaches. They should be compensated. They should be able to make money off their likeness. If this is not being discussed as the first and foremost thing on the agenda, then that's a miss, in my opinion.
Somewhere there's somebody that read the entire 60-page report and was like, where's page 61 where we talk about the money? You know, can we get to that part? Because that's something that we're all talking about. And I do believe that a lot of the things that she suggested, that she spoke about, will all be enacted. They're already talking about the one-and-done rule being abolished around 2020. But I still have a lot of questions about the money. So we'll see what Condoleezza Rice and her friends come up with for next time. Jalen, one thing we always do here is we celebrate power couples, and we'd like to congratulate Derek Fisher and Gloria Govan on their impending nuptials as they are now engaged. Quick question, do you think Matt Barnes will be invited to the wedding?
I don't think he's going to be invited, but I've appreciated how this situation has grown. And the great thing about our program is we adjust as the information does, and we grow up. And so just like we did with Tristan Thompson and Khloe Kardashian, when that name came up initially, we used to always scream, "Run!" But then when we realized that they were in a serious relationship, they started living with one another, and they started having a youngster on the way. True is the baby's name. Congratulations. We let them live. Same thing with Derek Fisher. I cracked jokes, and I had things to say about where he's spending Valentine's Day and going back and forth with the altercation in Matt Barnes and him crashing Matt Barnes' car and Matt Barnes and he allegedly having a physical altercation. I played in the league against both of these guys. And so now that he's taking it a step further to where they're really in a serious relationship and now they're engaged, I fall back and let them cook, just like Matt Barnes did on social media when he said that they've not seen eye to eye, but now they're communicating and they're on the same page about the future, and he congratulated them as well.
Congratulations to them. Next, very quickly, tonight is a pivotal Game 5 between the Raptors and the Wizards in Toronto. There's already been a little scuttlebutt between Drake and John Wall, and Drake's always hollering at the Wizards on the sideline. I have a prediction for tonight, Jalen Rose. I am predicting, really just hoping, that Drake gets into an argument with a Wizards player during the game and then is told by the referee to calm down. Do you think there's any chance that that happens?
I don't think there's any chance that that happens. But here's what I am appreciating. How corporate America and mainstream audiences all over the world have embraced hip-hop music, which has resulted into rap music. I appreciate seeing Meek Mill get out of jail after being visited by Robert Kraft and the Sixers owner and so many different people, and they putting him on a helicopter to bring him to the basketball game for good luck. I appreciate seeing Drake as an ambassador for the Toronto Raptors. When I'm watching the Golden State Warriors, E40 and MC Hammer on the front row, I just had to say that, and I don't anticipate a referee having anything to say to Drizzy Drake while he's standing on the front row.
I was really just hoping for
because you know he's on the no slander list.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Jalen and Jacoby. Don't forget, we have an extended podcast version that comes out every single day. You can subscribe to that on anywhere you listen to podcasts and the ESPN app.
Far too
we'll be off Thursday, Friday, back on Monday, because we're not done.
You got to give the people